Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown featuring myself in charge of a full skink force under the Cult of Sotek banner up against Dappy and the Skaven forces. We're here on Sulphur River. Should be a really fun game and some interesting tactics from both sides. So let's hop in here and have a quick little look at the builds. So I'll pop that into slow-mo now quickly so we can get through all the armies. There's rather a lot of skinks and Skaven to go through. Now on either flank we do have two little separate contingents from the main bulk, and that is going to be double skink cohorts with javelins, and they're going to be backed up by red-crested skinks with this awesome Cult of Sotek colour scheme, very bright looking skinks here. And these guys are here to help saturate on top of the skink javelins if anything does come to bite them or cycle charge them and the likes. And we have the same on the other side as well, double javelins backed up by some red crested skinks. Then the central pocket, it's the other way round. We have triple red crested skinks, including the Regiment of Renowned cohort of Sotek. It wouldn't really be a Cult of Sotek build without these bad boys in there. Of course, they can refuse to die and are unbreakable. And these guys are backed up by skink cohort with javelins, so they can throw those javelins up and over the force and poison enemies, slow them down and do some pretty decent damage all around. For the rest of my build, we have a lovely little leadership corps here, triple characters, one of which is a skink chief on foot. This guy is disgustingly cheap, and this colour scheme is so good. I haven't looked at this in so long, it's kind of taken my eyes off it there. Come in simply with Cold-Blooded. None of his other abilities or items. He's just here to sit on a character and do some damage over the course of the battle. And then we have double Stegodon here with a Skink Priest riding the glorious Ark of Sotek Stegodon. So he's going to be coming in with Transformation of Kadon, as well as Pan's Impenetrable Pelt. We're going to be dropping on our characters to try and keep them alive, healthy, and add a little bit of a speed boost so they can escape dangerous situations. We have Flock of Doom, and then we have the Burning Alignment as well, looking to roast some rats. With a red-crested skink chief leading our forces here, a really underrated or underused at least character in my opinion. Coming with warrior crest, it does give him that lovely boost to melee attack and defense. Makes him a very potent duelist, especially when on top of such a mighty beast. Also have a potion of strength and opal amulet as well to round off my build. So pretty fun stuff. Just going to swarm the enemy and try and allow the big Stegodons to deal with kind of the larger threats of my opponent's build. So for my opponent and the Skaven here, we have Skaven Slave Spears in the front line dotted along. Cheap, cheerful, here to take a bit of a beating for the Great Horned Rat and allow the rest of the build to actually do the damage. We have double Clan Rat Spears in that central pocket as well, one of which actually is the Clan Vulcan Tail Slashers, Beric Dondarrion's Rat Lookalikes with their flaming swords and rather awesome shields, and we have Ishka's Triads as well, Regiment of Renowned Eshin Triads, perfect for taking down large dinos, as they do come in with some glorious armor sundering and a lovely bonus versus large. You tend to want to have them fight with another unit as well though, because 20 armor, they are incredibly squishy. It does look like we have a grey Seal of Rune up on his mighty Screaming Bell here, having the absolute time of his life, rocking back and forth. Coming in with Arcane Conduit, Howling Warp Gale, the dreaded 13th Spell, and Unholy Clamour, and Scorch. And he's going to be rocking alongside a Plague Priest on a Plague Furnace as well. So really looking to win that infantry game with these guys running over my poor little skinks. Vermintide and Pestilent Breath are his poison of choice. We have an Itix Zap Zap Warp Lightning Cannon as well in the centre, protected by a ton of Rat Ogres dotted along, as well as the Warp Grinders who can pin you in place with that lovely Seismic Snare. We also have Rattling Gunners in the distance here, hidden in the trees, although I think I actually managed to see them, so their hidden must get broken in a second, and with some Rat Ogres to back them up as well. And apart from that, it looks like that's the majority of the build. Oh, there we go. I knew I was fair Sonic. We have a Doomwheel in the front line who's going to be vanguarding forwards. Doomwheel's very scary up against full skink builds, full goblin builds, those type of builds where you have a load of these small little light troops with not enough mass to pin it in. A Doomwheel can run havoc. Looks like in the distance, well, I have two Terran Riders I forgot to mention earlier. But here we go, battle is underway, and that Doomwheel is wasting no time here. Going to be darting forward, aiming for these red-crested skinks. So running for their lives. We're going to try and force it off. I mean, if we pin it in place, red-crested skinks, of course, are great axe infantry, and they can certainly do a decent amount of damage. We do try and box up into a tighter formation to absorb the charge, but unfortunately for us, I probably shouldn't have tried that because skinks are so light. It doesn't really matter how many we chuck in the way. The Doomwheel's always going to be able to pull through. As you can see, despite skinks laying down their lives, it can simply kind of jog away. But if we were someone like Dowie, pulling yourself in nice and tight can stop the pull, I suppose, or shout, or the weight dragging through the whole unit and doing some decent damage. Well, kind of some fat rock drops here onto the Itix Zap Zap cannon. trying to take it offline as quickly as possible. We are hit with a Howling Warp Gale. Rattling Gunners, though, are shooting us from a pretty decent range. They're not really the worst amount of damage. It's did a little bit, though, but nothing too crazy. And it looks like we've already managed to destroy one of the Zap Zap cannons. In fact, 2 of them there, taking off a lot of their deadly potency. While popping into the front line with all our red-crested skinks and skink cohorts as well, unleashing a few javelins, and in comes the mighty red-crested skink and skink priest, going to be running over these poor little Skaven slaves, before turning to engage that plague priest to try and beat it back. Looks like we do come in with our first glorious beam from the gods, but it is a bit of a miss. I tried sniping out the triads where possible. It looks like, though, it's may catch a 1 or 2 of the warp grinders, but not really doing much damage there at all. We have a summon of Storm Vermin with halberds here, going to pin in the Skink Priest and the Red-Crested one, who has popped all his buffs, is going to certainly need to get out of here relatively soon. We have surrounded that Plague Priest with a Manticore summon and absolutely decimating it there, but in return taking a hefty amount of damage as well. Over on the left-hand flank, things are going pretty evenly. Triads have pushed forward to help assist the lighter and weaker troops like the slaves. And yeah, they're doing pretty good. Skinks are holding them back, though, and doing some considerable damage as well as the second wave of our troops does start to advance. Skink Chief as well. Not got any kills yet, but he's going to be firing that little blow dart away, aiming for the Grey Seer. So it looks like we have managed to beat back the Plague Priest with our double Stegodon. We're going to be using the Pterodon Rise now to chase it off. In the distance, we're doing a similar thing as well. A little bit of misplay by my opponent is keeping his Rat Ogres chasing a rather useless unit of skink cohorts. Not useless, but just cheap. So our Javelin's going to be coming over here and pestering those guys, trying to get that free damage where possible. And it looks like the Red-Crested Skink Chief still having a hugely fun time. Pan's Impenetrable Pelt has been popped on him, increasing his speed, allowing him to bounce away from those Rattling Gunners where possible, who have had to force their way forward here into kind of the swampy land. And our Red-Crested Skinks can now put a little bit of pressure on them, although it looks like some Rat Ogres are coming in to intercept, so nice little switcheroo by my opponent there. So we're going to see another summon here coming in. I'm assuming it is the Storm Vermin once more. It is indeed. And they're going to be rolling dirty here with the Doom Wall. We'll start to take a considerable amount of damage to try and once again pin in our big, lovely monsters. But we're just going to walk straight through them, fling a couple to the ground, and focus on this Grey Seer where possible, and summon another Manticore to help us in our endeavour to assassinate such a mighty rat. And the Skink Chief is again doing decent damage over the course of time. It's not much of that little blow dart, but it will slowly all add up and poison him to stop him from running away from us, while dropping a Flock of Doom here and slowly wearing down the Triads is certainly going to be a good omen for our big dinos into the late game if we can finish them off. Doomwheel is now getting javelins to the face from the skink cohort, and with some red-crested skinks in there, it looks like we've managed to break it, at least for now, but it could always return. The Grey Seer is struggling a little bit here as the assassination attempt is underway. Red-crested skink chief, especially with his buffs popped, is deadly as an assassin. Coming in here, doing some pretty decent work on the Grey Seer. Unholy Clamor has been popped, but even so, it looks like he may be running for the hills here a little bit. So it looks like the Engine of the Gods does whirl into action once more, as another Holy Beam is going to be dropped, coming down the line on some, just some cheap units, but also on the Ishka's Triads as well, getting some really nice damage on them, finishing them off, and dragging them away from my lovely beasties. It looks like the Grey Seer of Ruin as well has clammed his last bell here, as he is going to be going down here, rocking back and forth, but down to just 80 health. He's not too long for this world, especially with such a feral beast hunting and dogging his footsteps. Although it looks like the Manticore may dissipate relatively soon, just needs one more big hit, but looks like he is struggling a little bit to get that engaged. In the back lines, we do dive on top of the rattling guns. I know the Rat Ogres are nearby, but at this point, if I can shut down the gunners, that will allow my big beasties just to carry the day. Warp Grinders do pop a Seismic Snare and a Warp Quake to keep my skink cohort in place and stop them getting into that back line. The Doom Wheel is the next focus of attention for the mighty duo, coming in here and doing some pretty decent work, routing it before obliterating it with a mighty and thunderous charge. Pan's Impenetrable Pelt once again popped on the Red-Crested Skink Chief, up in his speed, as well as giving him some resistance, and the Opal Amulets as well, just to ensure he does indeed survive up against the Rattling Gunner fire. We're going to be pulling him back now as well, away from the main engagement. I know the balance power is heavily in my favour, and I think I can just kind of rout off a lot of the enemy troops. So we're just sending in all the skinks we can to try and bog down the enemy, allow the Skink Priest as well to drop a fat Flock of Doom. I see a lot of units are now getting terrified that their leadership has indeed gone. Little Skink Chief as well, up to 8 kills, is trying to focus down key targets, hopping this time on top of the Rat Ogres, and the Skinks are now darting forward from the trees alongside that Skink Priest of Beasts, aiming to hunt and shut down those Rattling Gunners. We dart left and right through our natural terrain here, the swamps, and they're going to be coming in to harass the Rattling Gunners and shut them down. Looks like they are wavering and starting to flee. Once again, good play by my opponent, though, trying to drag back the Rat Ogres to protect that back line. But now that the Gunners have been shut down, we're simply going to wander forward with all our mighty beasts. And it is going to be a Pyrrhic victory there to the Lizardmen. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one. It was a super fun one to play. If you did enjoy, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. And if you do want to submit any replays to me, feel free to join my Discord. There is a link down below. Anyway, very well played to Dappy there in a super fun game. Certainly a Pyrrhic victory as well. He did huge damage to my build across the board. And it was a little bit on a knife's edge in that central part of the game as well. So my build, I've been really enjoying going full skink. I've been trying out a lot of Lizardmen styles at the moment, going for 20 stacks, full skink builds, and full skink is certainly no joke. I know a lot of the themed builds on the channel are kind of a bit memey and kind of, you know, oh, full white lines, is it competitive, is it not? And most time, kind of themed builds tend to not be competitive, but full skink is certainly something you can do to great effect. It allows you to swarm the enemy and bring a couple of big monsters to boot as well. You do have to be very careful, however. If my opponent had one or even just like one more Doom Will, maybe some Doom Flays as well in the mix, all of a sudden we are in huge trouble. We don't have much mass to pin in these type of troops. You can fall back with your Pterodons and attempt to use them to block in the troops, or use the big dinos as well as a bit of an anvil for those things to crash against. But with good micro, it is incredibly hard to catch those type of units. And as you can see, that Doom Will got 103 kills, which is pretty scary stuff. Real MVPs and standouts though was the Red Crested Skink Chief combined with the Skink Priest of Beasts, ganging up on the leadership of the enemy, shutting down the big and scary targets. And as I said multiple times in the battle, Red Crested Skink Chief is really underrated, and it doesn't really show in this matchup, but I had a really fun one up against an Empire player as well. I was going to cast, but the battle kind of got called a little bit short. The Red Crested Skink Chief has this awesome blow dart on his Stegodon, and he can actually counter skirmish, like Pistoliers, Outriders, Marauder Throne Axemen on horses, all that kind of like light skirmish troops. He's pretty damn good at shutting those guys down. So I'm tempted to bring him. Maybe you try out the old Rev Crystal as well and use him as an anti-skirmish tool while my army does indeed advance. Now for my opponent, Rat Ogres did very well as expected in this type of matchup. Good play of them as well to pull them back and protect the back line where possible. Unfortunately for him, he didn't really have the ability to stop Itic's Zap Zap being shut down. I think I kind of like the idea of the hidden units of Rattling Gunners. Where are they? There they are. The Rattling Gunners, but in the trees. But unfortunately for them, it kept them too far away from the battle, and it would have been better off having them on full display and shutting down me trying to shut my rock drops on top of Itic's Zap Zap, and because that got dragged down very quickly. It gave the Stabilins a lot more free reign, and I really had to kind of dodge around the Rattling Gunners or stay on the edge of their vision. But if these guys had been constantly there protecting Itic's Zap Zap, I could have been in big trouble. But I do like the idea as well of, you know, hiding in the trees and bouncing out and assassinating a unit rather quickly. Anyway guys, hope you did enjoy. Until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.